welcome back. So we are officially launching season 6 today. And to join me for season 6 is Amy Lamache. So let me tell you a little bit about Amy. Amy Lamache is a corporate IT girl, now full-time life purpose coach. Amy uses tarot, energy work, and coaching to help people discover and live a life full of joy, meaning, and purpose. And today she's here with me to talk about how to use the tarot for spiritual growth. Amy, how are you?
Hi, Angie. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. You're kicking off season 6. How does that feel?
It feels great.
So we're going to talk about the tarot today, but I always want to ask, how was your experience? How did you come into tarot? How was that like?
You know, it's probably the same way a lot of people come into tarot. I was basically in my 30s and single, and I had to know if Ray had feelings for me.
Aw.
So I have an aunt, she lived in out of state, and she read the cards. And every time she came down for a visit, she would do readings for us. And I guess this particular trip, I was waiting for her at my mom's house, and she arrived and she was just too exhausted. So she told me to go read my own cards. So
Do it yourself.
yeah, she just was not in the mood. So I went out and bought a deck of cards and a book. And that's why I got started. And that's how, what I used tarot for at first. But of course, it changed profoundly after just maybe a few months of using it. Its purpose for me changed profoundly.
Oh, that's awesome.
I realized it was much too important a tool to use for something as frivolous as, wanting to know if someone else liked me or not.
But hey, I know a lot of tarot people, and I know a lot of tarot people, and I know a lot of people that go to tarot people, and those are the basic questions of humanity. There's nothing wrong with that.
It is. I guess the difference for me, and not to say that those questions aren't important. It's not that. It's when it was more of what I was expecting from it. So in other words, I wanted to know yes or no.
Right.
Does he? And for me, that was like saying it's something set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we ask the tarot cards our questions and we get the answer, we say, well, this must be what's going to happen because the tarot said so. But what I believe and how I use them now is I believe the tarot can suggest the way the energy is flowing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But our futures are totally in our own hands. And it's all about how we handle the choices and decisions in our lives that create our future, not something that's predetermined.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm nodding my head and I'm smiling because I have so many different memories and thoughts in my head right now. There was an older lady, a mom of a friend of ours, that we're Colombian. So in Colombia, it wasn't just like the lady who reads the tarot, it's like the witch, right? She went to La Bruja, and La Bruja told her through the cards that she was going to die at the age of 60, I think it was. Which, number one, kind of sucks for somebody to tell you that. And number two, it's what you just said. It's that energy, that path, or that line, that parallel line that we can collapse into reality, right? So it was one of her futures, but that the lady just said by the age of 60, you're going to be dead. Like by your 60th birthday, you're dead. So for about 10 years, she would tell us that for about 10 years, she was like 40 when she had that done. For about 10 years, she was like, oh my God, I only have this much left. Oh my God, oh my God, 60 is coming up. Oh my God. And then like by the age 50, she was like, screw her, like no. And then she turned 60. She just died at 86. So it's like you can't, yes, use the tarot and what people tell you as kind of like a cheat glimpse into the future. But what that taught me was you can't really stick to what these people said because you make it real. That's the timeline you're choosing, right?
Yeah, and what if this person had said you're gonna die by the age of 60, so the person they're reading for says, well, you know what, I don't want to die at 60. I'm gonna start taking care of myself better.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that person wasn't eating right, or maybe they were doing something like smoking that, can end our lives earlier. And that prediction makes us do something better. But on the other hand, you could really hurt people because, like, your friend, you're living to die when someone says something like that.
Yeah. It's kind of one thing for you to know we're all gonna die eventually. It's
Yeah.
another thing for somebody to be like, you're 60th, you're gone. Like you're gone. Like what the hell, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about tarot because for today, I'm looking at my notes. We're going to use tarot for spiritual growth. Like
Yeah.
we just said, usually a lot of people come into tarot out of curiosity because they have a question, because they want to know something, because et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
What do you mean when we talk about spiritual growth to tarot?
Well, that's when instead of using the cards to divine, we use them to self-explore,
Mhm.
to help us understand ourselves, why we do certain things, and how we can improve. For instance, one of the things that is often recommended when you're learning tarot is to pull a card a day, right? And then they tell you that's that's a reflection of how your day is going to be. So again, we're divining. And I'm not saying that's wrong,
Mhm.
but when I was first learning, I was having a hard time with that because all day long I'm thinking, well, how does this fit into that card? And
Mhm.
trying to get like a square peg in a round hole, right?
Right.
So what I started doing instead is I started picking a card, not randomly, but deliberately at the end of the day that I felt reflected my day. Okay. And a lot of times I didn't know why I picked certain cards. They just felt right. And then what I ended up doing is getting curious, well, why was I drawn to pick this card? And sometimes it was like something simple. Maybe I picked the tower because I broke a piece of china, right? So something
Right.
broke that day,
Right.
or something like that. But sometimes it took me to a deeper place because I started really reflecting on why I picked certain cards. And not only did this develop a better connection to the tarot cards for me and make me a better reader, but they also helped me understand myself better and
Right.
why I did certain things. And honestly, that was quite empowering. Another thing I did was, and I'm trying to remember where I first came about this, learned about doing this, because a number of really great tarot authors have this in their books. And it's one of the things I teach in my tarot journaling challenge is to journey into the card.
Mhm.
And what you do is you just, and it's, the free download that I've attached as
Mhm.
well. What you do is you go into the card, first you study it, right? You study it and you try and recreate it in your mind to kind of memorize all the details and symbols that you see. And then you just go into a very relaxed state and using your imagination, which is very powerful, by the way, and should not be discounted as something frivolous. Using your imagination, you just imagine yourself entering into this card and then let the whole scene open up and just explore and let your subconscious suggest what's going to appear before you as you venture out beyond what's in the actual scene of the card, or
Okay.
perhaps you talk to a figure in the card. And these messages that you get are actual messages from your subconscious, excuse me, and can really help you get through some really complex things in your life. And just as an example, I had once journeyed into the death card, which a lot of people would just associate quite literally as death or a scary ending. And based on my journey into the card, I saw it as really something fresh and new and a clean slate, a new beginning, and a release of things that we hold on to that really aren't helping us anymore, but we're so used to them and we're so dependent on them that we don't want to let them go. So that complete turnaround on how to see some of these major archetypes in the tarot deck was really influential to me. There was another instance where I had journeyed into the Star card. And while I was there, I had an experience where I was able to contact my deceased father, where
Mm.
suddenly he came into the whole picture and released a lot of pain that was living inside me due to the loss of him.
Right.
And after that occurred, I just had um, a much less painful understanding of death.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Let me ask you, what card was it? The Star card?
the Star card. Yeah.
Now, my question is, what exactly does the Star card represent that may have guided your subconscious to help you connect with your father? Or could it have just been that you're at a meditative state? And so which one of the, or is it a combo of both?
Well, in that case, I would say there was nothing really about the Star card that influenced it, other than the fact that the Star card, when you look at it, can represent this connection we have to something much bigger than just us,
Okay.
right? It's about that connection to the universe, to the divine, and she's pouring water into a pool and into the ground, and that represents infusing our lives with this spiritual connection and bringing it to earth and creating with it. It's also a card that usually means hope, which I guess could be part of it. But when I teach tarot, I teach that your intuition or messages you get, similar to the way I got that message from the death card and the Star card, should always supersede any defined meanings that have been assigned to a card, because those are your gift. That's your intuition giving you the message you need to hear, or the person you're reading for needs to hear. And it's much more important to be open to that than it is to memorizing and making it your reading fit to the meaning of the card.
Right.
So, yeah, it's really wonderful. And that's why I consider that a huge part of spiritual growth, because you're open to whatever the message is you need to hear. You're not limited that way.
Right. It's funny because, okay, so I've told you at other times, I got my first set of tarot. I think I was about 15. I
Mhm.
still have them, literally, they're sitting in my room. But I am one that bought all the books, did all the things, try to memorize all of them. Ask me right now, and I have a vague idea of what the major arcana are. Vague. And the minor, it's like I totally always forget. You said is key, because I never took it in as, which I love, and we're gonna talk about it at the end, but what it is that you're offering, like that challenge, that journeying into the cards, that letting it speak for yourself, because then it actually, the card means something to me. It's not defined, which is what you're talking about. So I can totally see where we would use that for spiritual growth, because it's my own intuition
Mhm.
and everything else above me that is talking through the card to me, with me.
Yeah, even your guides can speak to you through the cards. So a lot of people through mediumship are able to channel messages from their guides, and I am a very visual person.
Mhm.
And this is how my guides talk to me, through symbols, through images, through associations with my own experiences.
Right.
And that's what all guides will do, is they'll try to speak to you in the easiest possible way,
Mhm.
using your experiences and your knowledge and your memories to evoke a message, right?
Mhm.
And for me, it's the tarot cards because I have been obsessed with them for like 20 years. So it's a great way to make a connection to your guides, and really you can ask them the questions. Another thing you can do, like when you're reading as opposed to learning the meanings, it's really about, the symbols in that particular deck, right? Because all decks are different and they're all
Mhm.
beautiful and unique in their own way.
Mhm.
They're trying to kind of stick to a generalized theme, but still they're all beautifully unique. And whatever deck you're working with that you obviously resonate with, it's what the symbols in that particular deck mean to you that are important.
Right. Okay.
And another thing I would recommend too is if you are reading for other people, either
Mhm.
professionally or just, as a friend, let the other person, if they want to, express their reactions to the different cards, because again, subconsciously or from above, they're getting messages that are important to them based on their associations with the imagery in the card, right?
Right.
So I never I always invite my querents to really participate in the reading. Some want to, some don't, and that's
Mhm.
fine if they don't. But if they do, I really encourage it. A lot of people think that as a tarot reader, you're supposed to do all the talking and give all the answers. And for a true spiritually led reading, that's not the case. If you're divining, okay, fine. But if you're really trying to empower someone and to give them a message from their guides or from their higher self, then you're definitely okay involving them in the reading.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I hadn't heard the opposite, but I had never heard that invitation openly.
Mhm.
So you pretty much know me by now, and everybody that sees the show, I'm very conversational. So I always ask a lot of questions. Um, so when I've gotten my cards read, I'm like, and I'll ask and I'll intervene. But I don't think I've ever had anybody openly tell me, participate in the reading and what do you see and except one lady who knew I was learning how to read the cards, and I was like 18, 19
Mhm.
maybe. So she was trying to get me involved in what she knew, which is a totally different story. But yeah, that I think that's awesome because example, when you're talking about the symbols and what the symbols means to you,
Mhm.
let's say the person getting the cards read, the cat in the card caught their attention because of blah blah blah,
Mhm.
and it was meant for them to see it. And it's nice that you're telling them, hey, if you see something, talk about it, because then you guys can elaborate or dig.
I'll give you an example. So I was doing a reading for a coworker. Okay. And she's from Brazil. She's very superstitious,
Mm-hmm.
very open to tarot, but she had certain, superstitions. So anyway, we're doing a reading. She wanted to ask about some career options she had. All right. So we did some cards for each of the options, right? And as I'm laying out the cards, I pull out for one option the Queen of Wands, which normally I would say is a really positive card um, for that particular outcome. It would indicate that she would be able to be creative. She would really be a great manager because she'll be empathetic, yet she'll inspire people to be their very best. It's a great leadership card, in my opinion, for the Queen of Wands.
Okay.
But when I turned the card over and she saw it, all she saw was that black cat that sits in front of the Queen of Wands throne.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, and she's speaking in Portuguese now, so I can't, she's like, oh my God, oh no, it's a black cat. I can't take that job.
Oh, wow. Okay. I
And
didn't
you
get
know
that.
what?
Okay. Yeah.
For her,
Uh-huh.
that's the answer, but I might have interpreted it totally differently. And I did try and kind of take her off the ledge because I didn't want her to discount that opportunity just based on that card. So I did tell her my interpretation of it and what I felt it meant, but she'll decide,
Right.
if she should take that route or not.
Right.
But that's just an example of the ways that the person you're reading for can participate in the reading. Sometimes I'll say, I'll just do my reading. If they're quiet and they're not participating, I'll do the reading. And then I'll say, I'd really like to know if there's any particular cards that stand out to you when you see them in the reading. And then if they say, wow, I really love this Queen of Wands. I don't know. She reminds me of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how does she remind you of your mother? And just let them talk. And you'd be surprised how much more they'll get out of the reading when they start talking about things that stood out
Okay.
for them. And you can really dig in deeper and get more more in alignment with what they need to hear. It's really wonderful.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And one of the other things is, so way back in the day, because things have changed a lot, right?
Mhm.
But way back in the day, the people who read cards, the special ones, were gifted people. Nowadays, especially and talking to you, you teach people how to read the tarot.
Mhm.
So the way I've explained it for a few years, this is the way I'll explain it, and then I'll let you answer a question. Yes, some of us have more of an ability to do it, maybe without so much study, and it comes easier. But
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that only special people can have the gift of reading the cards or divinity or intuition or connecting with the angels or whatever it is.
Yep.
How's your take on that?
Well, I'll tell you. So when I was young, like I said, my aunt read tarot cards and she did all sorts, the numerology, all these things. And I really believe that back then you had to be psychic, right?
Right.
Be able to do anything like that. And when she told me, go read your own cards, and I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, yes, you do. Yes, you could do it. You're fine. So I'll say that there are some people that are more natural, and they just kind of pick it up like that. But I'm here to tell you that I had absolutely no psychic or intuitive skills at
Mhm.
all when I first began reading tarot. And what I did is I decided not to care, okay? And just take what they could do for me. And what you'll find is the more you practice and the more you trust yourself. And I also, in my courses, I teach a lot about how to develop your intuition.
Mhm.
And there is a difference between psychic messages and intuitive messages.
Mhm.
Some people feel they're the same thing. And I think that could be just a matter of what we call things. But
Mhm.
a psychic impression yeah, someone is more clairvoyant or has one of the clairs and they're a natural and they get these messages and I see a red car, I see you driving off in a red car and your father said something about this dog named Ralph and you're like, oh my God, we had a dog named Ralph. Yes.
Right.
Okay, so tell me how that is benefiting the other person.
Mhm.
How is it? But intuitively, when we're in tune to not only the guides, but our own subconscious and the archetypes and the messages that live there based on our life, those are the ones that really empower and help us.
Mhm.
So while those psychic abilities can be very beneficial because a lot of times they do offer a lot of comfort to people,
Mhm.
or they can give people clarification or solidify things for them, and that's wonderful. But intuitive messages are, in my opinion, a lot more beneficial and important,
Okay.
especially when it comes to, living your best life and becoming more empowered.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And you can develop those skills. You can absolutely do exercises that will improve them with time.
Right.
Yeah.
So could it be that okay, now I'm thinking about the whole players and the psychic versus the intuition. That's a cool topic. So
Yeah.
the way I see it, from when it comes from intuition, it comes from not only within,
Mhm.
but our own guides, our own subconscious, and our own knowing of past lives. Let's put it that way.
That's true.
Just
Yes.
to kind of leave it at that and not go all quantum on this call.
Mhm, mhm.
With psychic, could it be, since we are, I always say, biological computers, this body, this avatar is literally a biological computer that's picking up a reception. Could it be that the clairs are just picking up receptions of what's still hanging out in this dimension and maybe not the higher dimensions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there are levels of there are dimensions, there are levels of energy.
Right.
And like when for instance, you have a psychic ability to see things that have happened. So someone gives you a precious item that belonged to someone, all right? Or maybe it's a missing person and someone touches this, let's say it's a piece of clothing or jewelry, and they can picture that person. They can maybe see where they are sometimes, or things that they've said or done. Those can be very helpful for many reasons, but those are energies that they're reading right here. There are also people that can read other people very well, which is also very beneficial. And so I went to a reader once, she threw down a whole bunch of cards, but really she didn't use them at all. What she really used was she held my hand.
Mm-hmm.
She asked me to place my hands on hers,
Mm-hmm.
and she read my energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that is very valuable. And while I can kind of read people a little when I'm around them, and you might walk into a room if someone has some strong feelings going on, you can sense something's going on. And that's, yes, you're reading the energy of this earth plane. But when I do readings, and sometimes I do channeled messages from people's spirit guides, I am not on this plane reading energy. I am up there on the soul level, on the soul plane, getting messages for other people or for myself from our higher selves or our guides.
Right.
And that's a much higher level. It's also different types of messages, right? And then the other way I'm getting messages, especially with the cards, is I am using my past experiences and my understanding of certain archetypes that are in a traditional tarot deck to interpret the cards as well. But again, it's all divinely guided. And the other thing is that I consider really important is saying that prayer and setting that intention before the reading. So before a reading, I always surround myself with light, and I ask for love and protection from the universe or God or whatever your higher power is, right? And then I ask that the reading be for the person's higher good and the highest good for everyone involved. So if I'm doing a reading on someone and they want to help on a relationship, so I want that reading to be for everyone's best good, everyone involved. And once you set that intention, and I ask that their guides, their higher self, their angels, their master teachers all come in and guide me to give them the best answer so that they can live their highest path.
Right.
Right.
And that brings me to something super interesting because, again, let's talk about the past. I mean, I laugh sarcastically now, not that it was funny, but the whole let's burn the witches, right? With everything that happened, obviously, a lot of the people that survived that and the generations and, it comes through our DNA and like the whole thing. Not everybody talks about their intuitive gifts because it became first, shh, you don't want to get burned. Second, it was kind of like, those are things you just don't share. And then it kind of led to our lifetime that people now consider it either new age. Well, before, I think now it's a little bit more mainstream than it was 20, 25 years ago when I started. It's a little bit more mainstream, but they still see it as either new age, or then there are those that still see it as the devil's work or the witch's work, or what is it that you're connecting to that this is whatever. So how do you approach a topic like that? Like, because in a way, we're connecting to our own intuition, we're connecting, but there are people that are good and there are people that have ill intentions.
Yes. So I'm not sure, are you asking me like how, if I were having a conversation with someone about tarot, how would I convince them that it's not like the work of the devil or something?
Well, not convince them, because I don't think we could ever convince them.
Yeah.
But has that ever happened to you, that somebody has ever came to you and told you like, oh, that's like, playing with the devil?
No.
No?
I think I had one person from work. So I did have one person from work, which was, he was like a very fundamental Christian, and basically, oh, you need to be really careful with that, Amy. That's, the devil could come through. And I'm like,
Right.
no, I'm pretty good. Thank you though.
Right.
And that was it. I just let it go. He let it go because, yeah, I mean, I've always been really open about my tarot practice and how I use the tarot cards. And a lot of people just kind of, some people are just like roll their eyes kind of thing, but I've never had anyone really kind of like get really seriously, taken aback by it.
Oh, good.
And honestly, I really was very fortunate to grow up in a home that encouraged us to explore our spiritual path
Mm-hmm.
and really follow what rang true for us.
Mm-hmm. And that's
So
amazing.
yeah, I was in a very open-minded family. So for me, seemed like really normal. And I'll tell you another story, like how I started teaching tarot. It was only a few years after I started learning myself. I was you said in my bio, I was a corporate IT girl, and I was working for this huge company at the time, a global company, and I was on a global project, right? So basically, me and a bunch of people from all over the world were on this team now, and we were going to roll out this huge project. And the manager decided, as a way for us all to get to know each other, everyone had to do a 40-minute presentation about something we were passionate about. So it was really just he wanted everybody to get up there, share something about themselves. And I remember that he himself talked about Curacao because he was from this island
Mm-hmm.
that he grew up on. He talked about growing up there. Another guy talked about Indian politics. One person talked about how they love to bake, and I talked about tarot. So in 40 minutes, I had a handout with all the keywords and for all the cards, and then I did like a little bit about the history, which they were like blown away because I'm like, no, it was just a card game.
Mm-hmm.
And a whole bunch of people in the 1800s decided it was Egyptian or
Right.
related, and it's all like they just pulled it out out of nowhere and
Right.
decided it. So anyway, by the end of that 40 minutes, I had them all giving each other readings, and they loved it. And everyone there was totally like had a whole new take on what tarot was. So it was really great. And from that point on, I realized that's how I teach it.
Was
And
that before you started teaching? Or was that after?
That was before. That was the first time I
Okay.
ever really talked openly about tarot or tried to teach it to anybody. And it
Right.
was really just because it was something that I was really into at the time, and that's what he
Right.
said to do, talk about something you're passionate about.
And
And
that's
I
the
thought,
thing. That's the first time you're
yeah,
talking about it. And by the end of the 40 minutes, not only did you teach them
yep.
about it,
Mhm.
you taught them how to read for others.
Yep,
Like
I had them pair I brought a few decks in and I had them pair up, and they had to give each other readings based on the cheat sheet that I had put together as a handout for the presentation.
that
Yeah.
is super cool. See, I never got a corporate meeting like that.
Yeah, that's the thing is because of the way I was brought up, it never occurred to me that, oh, I shouldn't do that at work.
Mhm,
Because a lot of people are
mhm.
like, oh, I would never talk about this at work.
Exactly.
And I'm like, not. It's just, it's what I do. It's something I
Right.
enjoy outside of work.
Right.
Maybe you enjoy doing triathlons. I don't know. And
Right.
so you talk about that because it's something you enjoy.
Right.
Yeah, and I enjoy delving into things that are kind of mystic in nature.
That's me all along. And it's funny
Just call me
because
Woo Woo Amy.
yeah. And it's funny because okay, so we're all brought up differently.
Yeah.
And the way I was brought up into a world of spirituality, but it's not the kind of spirituality that I understand and know or practice now.
Mhm,
And even though I grew up with that, it was still hush, nobody should know that we talk about this.
mhm,
And it wasn't until I've been loving the mystic and like all of those things since I was young. Like for me, I thought it was normal. The fascination with like the spell books and the brews, and you mix this with this, so you chant this under the. For me, it's fascinating. It's fun. Like it's always been fun ever since I was a little girl. But 20 I studied alternative medicine, 25, 26, 27, I can't remember. So I studied alternative medicine, and it was like the science and the logic behind all of this magic, woo woo, mystical that I've known about. That's when I realized I don't care how they raised me when I was young. I can get to speak about it now because I'm not doing any devil's work, because I can
mhm,
logically explain it, because it's normal for me. But now I have language. Before I
mhm,
didn't have language except, oh, I saw an angel behind you, or I saw a guide, and they're like, what? Now it's kind of like, okay, I have better terminology and better ways of explaining it. But the way that I was raised, it was, you don't talk about it. You don't talk to anybody about this. I would go see tarot people since I was a little girl. Like I started getting tarot readings when I was like 14, 15, 16. But I had been going since I was like 5 with, family members, but I could never say anything.
mhm.
So it's interesting how everybody takes a different path. And it's what we're talking about today. It's spiritual growth.
Yeah.
It literally is.
Yeah, I read somewhere, and I can't remember where I read it, but I read somewhere that magic is science that we don't understand yet.
Beautiful.
We call
Mhm.
it magic because we really don't understand how it works yet, but it's
Right,
really just
right,
science.
right. And
Yeah.
I am very totally off subject in a way, but
Mhm,
related to that, I'm very much into ancient civilizations and like all those discoveries. And I began with a fascination for Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology. So I've always looked into that. And very similar to what you just said, they were talking something in the words of, if you can show a lighter to somebody from ancient civilization, like people in Mesopotamia or the cavemen, if you turn on a lighter, a modern day lighter, you're a god. Why
mhm,
wouldn't they consider you a god? You have the power of fire in your hand.
yeah,
That to them was magic. To us, it's called a lighter. So yeah, and that's exactly it. I love how you said that. It was beautiful.
yeah.
So we are running out of time. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I know you have a special gift for the viewers. Talk to us a little bit more about that and where they can get it, and I'll put the link below in the description.
Yeah, so basically, you'll get a link that will take you to a web page where you can sign up for my email list. And don't worry, if you don't want to stay on it, you can always unsubscribe. But When you do that, you should get an email with a link to a guided journey where you can journey into the card. I really think you should all give it a try because what you get out of it is just going to be profound, I promise.
Right.
So I really hope you enjoy it.
Perfect. Thank you. So, tell me the website name.
Well, it's basically just a link to a page called Divine Lives.
Okay.
But my tarot blog is Hudson Valley Tarot. So if you want to check out my blog, and I have some of the journeys I did from my own tarot journal are up on my blog. If you want to check them out, you can check them out there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, honey, again, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Thank
It
you
was
for
great to
being my
be here.
first episode of season 6.
My pleasure.
Nudge, there's no, I can't see, I can't even say it. Like, it's such a wonderful feeling. I can't explain it to have you on board. So thank you again.
All right. Take care, Angie.
The same. And everybody take care, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.